All right, I think we're ready. So what we're doing today, actually first, before we do what we're doing today, let's clean up where we left off last time. So last time we put the SKR Touch on, let's see, still on there. Well, where's our, there it is. Put SKR Touch on and we uploaded new firmware for it. We used the TH3D unified firmware 2.0 or 2. Whatever for this particular setup. And I couldn't get it to home. The Z-axis would only move upwards. So that was kind of a fail-safe thing. When it doesn't detect in-stop, it just moves upwards, so it doesn't crash into something on the bed. It was a really simple. I thought, well, there were some of these in the past, not SKR Touches, but BO Touches, where I had to flip some wires around. So I thought, or even tried to do that. That didn't solve it. In fact, that can be pretty bad if you switch the wrong wires around, because you could burn up the SKR Touch itself, or you could burn out your board. Like you could burn out, short something on the board itself, the printer board, and be out the entire computer's, not computer, but printer. The entire printer's not working then. So that wasn't the issue, though. The issue was something in the way TH3D built their software. And let's see if I can find VS Code. Here it is. Here's our configuration.h. This little section right here for BL Touch, I thought what they were saying is you select one of these options. Or you're using the line 324, the BL Touch with the 3 wires for the BL Touch and the 2 separate wires for the in-stop. So like they're 2 separate places you plug stuff in. Or you use BL Touch on the 5-pin if you have what we have, where you had one 5-pin plug that goes into the board. And so I kept doing one. I did try this one also, and I tried line 26. Turns out you have to do both of them. So one of them to activate the BL Touch. In this case, we're doing the SKR Touch, but same thing as far as this software goes. And then the other one you also do if you want the 5-pin connector. So uncomment both of these lines for this particular setup, and it worked fine. I also, let's see, they have the, this wizard. I had turned it off. I probably want to turn that back on, but today we're going to change the entire thing anyway, so none of this will matter. What we're going to do today, oh wait, before I do that again, I have one other thing, because I was doing some of the grading, and for people's assignments they had turned in, and I ran across this temperature tower. This is kind of like when I printed my temperature tower and showed it early on in the quarter, it kind of looked the same everywhere. This is more like what you don't want to see this, but this is what's more typical here. Of why you might want to do a temperature tower. It could be that your setup in that particular roll of filament prints fine at a really wide range of temperature. But this one starts at, let's see, well, there's 200, 205, 210, 215, 220, 225, and 230, I assume. It's kind of very yucky down there. And you can clearly see at the hotter temperatures, not only does the surface finish on the little column on the right-hand side of the screen get worse, but you've got all sorts of stringing in here under the little bridge section. And so this is more useful looking. It actually looks like, the lowest temperature here, 200, maybe 205. There's a little bit of, wobbliness right here. That could just be random, but it is there. And there's the same thing over here, this one. It does look like this particular person's printer with this particular roll of filament is going to print better at the colder temperatures. So maybe even drop this all the way down to 195 and see how it goes. And so that's the benefit of doing these temperature towers. Now, you have to do them every time you change something. So if you change your cooling, change your roll of filament, then you would have to do a different one to get the same information for that new setup. But in general, this roll of filament is going to, assuming it's a kilogram roll of filament, it's going to last for a long time for printing. And you could take now and write on that particular roll that it's probably going to print best on that printer anyway at 200. Now, I haven't ever done this particular thing, but I'm assuming that if I got 5 different Ender 3s, lined them all up, set them all to 200 degrees Celsius on the nozzle, that if I had an independent way to measure that nozzle temperature, they're probably a little bit different on each one of them. They're probably not that well calibrated to where they're each 200 degrees. So 200 on one printer might be 202 on another printer, possibly. I've never tested that. I suspect that, though. But it's possible that they're all the same, but I suspect there's probably a decent amount of variation from one printer to another. So, if you look at some person's, they got a Hatchbox roll of filament on their Ender 3, and they printed a temperature tower. Your Ender 3 with Hatchbox roll of filament, different roll of filament, it's probably not going to be exactly the same. It's probably close enough, but it's probably not exactly the same. All right, so I just wanted to show that this is kind of what you sort of see when you look at a temperature tower that's telling you something. So this one's definitely saying that if you start printing at 215 or hotter on that roll of filament on that printer, you're probably going to have a lot of stringing. It might be that the part is stronger, like it's welded, the layers are attached to one another better, but it's definitely going to have stringing on it. And the colder you print, it may be a slightly weaker part. The temperature tower doesn't tell you anything about the weakness of the part. I take that back. It will if it gets so bad that it just delaminates. That you could end up with that situation if you're printing with something that the temperature is just too low. It could clog, it could not print at all, or it could delaminate up there. So it could tell you that, but generally it's not telling you about the strength of the part. It's telling you the surface finish. All right, now let's do what we're going to do today. We will need this, so we'll keep this open. But what we're planning on doing today is, let's actually turn those off and go back to the printer. We are going to change our control board entirely. So what I've got here, oh wow, we gotta move way out. Maybe I'm zoomed in. Nope. We're gonna put this guy in here. So we've got, here it is. We've got this guy. Oh, all right, so this is, I wasn't sure what this one was going to be. This is the SKR Mini E3 version 2. So there's a version 1, 2, and there's even a version 3. So this is the version 2. Let's get it out of our little bag so we can look at it. It looks pretty much exactly like the one that we have in there, but it is different. And it's not exactly the same. What's in there is the Creality 4.2.2 board. So that is one of the older Creality boards. This is certainly not a necessary upgrade, but just in case you ever want to do this, we're going to show you how. So here's our new board, and let's zoom into it a little bit and look at some stuff. All right, so you can see most of it's the same. We do have a couple of new ports right here that we didn't have on the 4.2.2 board. Got this little set of pins right here, the labeled TFT. Let's get the writing right side up. There we go. See if we can not glare. That helps. So we've got a couple of new things. We have a new processor on here. These are little stepper drivers here, X, Y, Z, and our extruder motor. They'll plug in some boards, not many, but some boards cause you to rewire like the plug-ins, so that the ones that are on your current printer just won't plug in to these ports. This board is fine with Ender 3. It's actually made for, it even says E3 on it. It's made to drop in exactly into this exact same spot. So it's perfectly made for Ender 3s. Other boards may not be that way. This one is. So you've got, we do have some little heat sinks to drop onto our stepper motor drivers right here. They're going to get hot. Now this board does have a really large copper heatsink built into it, so it's probably fine that we don't have the heat sinks on top also. I am going to put them on there. They just stick on. Oh, look here. I didn't even notice. We have ZA and ZB, so I have the option for a dual axis Z setup. That's an interesting thing to do. I haven't done that recently. Maybe if I can find a good dual axis setup. It's a little bit of a pain because of this. Let's see if I can get you over here. So what it would do is I've got one Z-axis over here behind this rail. It would add another Z-axis over here, which obviously power supply is in the way. And that particular power supply is one of the thicker ones, which won't easily just fit underneath the board. Something happened on my screen, not sure what. Looks like we're fine. So that would be a little bit of a pain, but it is an option on this board to have two completely separate Z motors, to have a lead screw on this side as well as this side. So we'd have to get some new hardware to do that. But that's one thing we could do if I find the right parts for it. We've got the same setup over here where our power in, and then our fan and our, well, we'll have to look and see which one goes next. Oh, it's probably on the bottom. VBB and V, so that's the power. We'll have to check a pin out to see which one it's going to be. I'm going to assume that's the bed and that's the nozzle, but it might be the other way around. And it's not labeled on the board anywhere. It's probably the exact same as what we take out, but I want to make sure. So we'll look up a pin out for this to make sure which one is which, because it could be that that's the fan. I don't know. We'll have to check. And there's probably no documentation in our little box of parts. You do get a little duck every time you do this. Unplug something. We've got a couple of new options here for, let's see if I can see what they are. There's a power supply on switch. There's a NeoPixel, so we can have LED lights on here that we can change their color. We've got our 5-pin port for the BL Touch, well, our CR Touch. We do have a fuse, 20 amp fuse, so that's nice. There was one on the other board too. We got some voltage regulators and end stops. Look like they're all in the same order. Our fan might be in a little bit different order. One of these fans will be the layer cooling fan, and one will be the fan here. We'll have to see which one. Sometimes these are the ones that are in a different spot from this board to this board. Sometimes we'll have to check that out. All right, so replacing this thing physically is just a matter of getting everything out of here and putting the new stuff in, plugging it all up. So that's not terribly hard. We will have to get some firmware. I do not know if there's any firmware installed on this thing at all. There may be nothing. Or there could be something already running on here. I don't actually know. One of y'all came by the office the other day with a printer that they had changed the board out. I don't remember what board they had put in there. It wasn't one of these, I don't think. I think it was a Creality, like they went from a 2.2 to a 2.7 maybe. And there was no firmware on that board at all. So it kept giving, it just beeped. We'll turn this one on and see if there's anything on it or not. We also have this, which is another upgrade that doesn't really do anything, but it does two things that I like. One, maybe the biggest thing it does, and I don't want to get it out right now, but we can kind of see right there. It gives you some SD card, the big size SD card, and a USB port right on your screen. So it puts it replaces this screen, and you'll have USB, well, you'll have USB and a SD card port right here. Much easier to get to than this one down here. So I like that. And this one is a touchscreen, so you'll get some touchscreen color screen, so it just looks nicer. Doesn't actually necessarily do anything better, except it does put those SD card slots there. So let's get in here. Let's get kind of close to that. Probably making everybody seasick. and get in here, and this bed does not go back as far as I would like for it to, so it's going to make accessing in here a little bit tricky, but we'll manage. The other thing on these newer printers is that pretty much all the wires are labeled. They have the little labels on them that make it a lot easier to recognize what is going where. I'm going to move the bed to get to this back one. Let's get a little duck out of the way. Oh, this one's... There we go. All right. I should have something to keep all the little hardware in. I'm just going to keep it over here. I'm going to move this out of the way because that's any bit of the clearance that I can get is going to help. Let's move that up, and we'll just set this kind of back there. All right. So let's go ahead and unplug this guy. Now, I will say this board has already been replaced once at least once on this printer. I think this printer is old enough that it came with one of the version 1 boards on it. They were similar, but they were 8-bit boards. These are 30. This is a 4.2 board. This is a 32-bit board. Oh, the other thing this does, these are silent drivers here, so we should have a lot quieter movement on our printer. But what I was going to say about that is, normally the first time you take this board out, if you ever take this board out, all of these little connections are going to be hot glued in place. So that's good because it means they probably didn't like pull out randomly during shipping or assembly or anything like that. But it means that you're going to have to take you some kind of tool probably and slice off hot glue from everywhere. I don't see any remaining hot glue looking at the screen instead of the board. I don't see any, but usually there'll be blobs of hot glue on there. There's a little bit of it back in, well, it's under the thing back there. Well, there's some right there. And that was where this ribbon cable, or a ribbon cable anyway, was glued down. So we're going to get this guy out of the way. Let's just kind of get it to where it's not in the way. So you'll have to get that off of there. Everything else should just unplug. And these little things are on most of your wires, which will tell you, like, that's the extruder motor. And pretty much everything except for maybe these fans right here are going to be in the same order when we go to plug them back in. I'm going to unplug the printer. I mean, it's not on or anything, but just in case, we are working with the power in right back there. So I'm going to unplug it. Here are these white wires are in stops. They are not labeled. Like, they're just the same. So what you have to do is you have to look at, see the one that's bundled. Let's get that out of the way. The one that's bundled with these wires here is going to the hot end, and the one that's bundled with these big fat wires back here is going to the bed. So this is the bed thermistor, this is the hot end thermistor. Sometimes they're different colors. This particular printer has them exactly the same, and they're not labeled, so you got to know which one goes where. And you look what bundle they're in. So this one's bundled with the cooling fan, the yellow and blue, also with the hot end wires here, and with the part cooling fan. Well, actually, this set is the always on fan. This is the part cooling fan. All right, so you do have to figure out some way you can label them. Nothing's stopping you from labeling them if you want to. All right, so the order here is we've got the always on fan for the extruder, the hot end, not the extruder, the hot end. We've got the bed, and we've got the hot end heat block. So that's the order they're on here. We need to find out if that's the same order on this board, because it could be, but there's nothing that tells me that. So these, you just use some kind of screwdriver and unscrew these, and they will slide out of there. Also, why you want the printer off, because you're going to have these exposed wires just floating around in there. All right, these in the back are the hardest to deal with, but that's what we got to deal with. All right, now we can get our board out. It's usually got 4 or 5 little Allen screws that you have to get out of there. It doesn't need that many, but that's how many it usually has. Okay, let's get that one out. That one out. Oops, dropped one down in there. Always good to have some kind of tool to get stuff out of there. I think we'll get it out once we get the board out though. Oh, probably need to take your SD card out, because it's kind of hanging through across this wall, and it's really easy to snap that in half. All right, oh, we got one more screw in there. Okay, so it just kind of slides back and comes out of there. Oh, never took those wires out. Okay. Now, this guy you can put in your little package that the other one came in. There's nothing wrong with it. You never know, you might need to replace it someday. All right, before we go too much further, let's look at the wires here. Those look okay. These are a little bit shabby looking. I think they're all right. Those are all right. I'm just looking to make sure I don't have, like, they haven't been broken anywhere. I've got some strays sticking out or anything like that. If you have like one little stray wire off of this thing that doesn't go into the little port over here, it might short across the one it doesn't want to short across, or it shouldn't short across. I like to go ahead and open up all of these things all the way, so that when it's easier to plug the wire in there. That one's not. Oh, that was okay. That one's not flat head for some reason. I'll have to get a different tool. This one, yeah, they're all closed on this one. Sometimes some are open, some are closed. So the idea is very blurry right now. There we go. So see, that one's open, that one's closed. All right, and this one had Phillips on it. So we're just going to open it up too. Well, maybe it's already open. No? Not sure what. Let me look at it up close. I'm not sure what's going on with that one. It was already open. Okay. All right. For whatever reason, these were already open, so I don't know if yours will be that way. All right. Now we need to go over here to the screen, and we need to find the pinout, SKR Mini E3 pinout. See if this one. All right, so I don't know that this looks similar. What I'm looking at right here, it doesn't say it's the version 2. So this might be a version 1. Here's a 2. Oh, that one's different though. Would they? Oh, here, let's look at this one. This one says it's version 2. All right, so we've got the power for just a power 12 volt out or 24 volt out, or whatever we put in comes out right there. That's going to be just always on. And what we want to do with this one is hook the fan that cools the hot end, or the cold side of the hot end. We'll look at all those little pieces later on, but not today. I don't think we'll have time. So that's going to be our hot end fan. There, the middle one is the bed, which is what we thought made sense. It's got the big regulator beside it, and the bed probably needs more power. And then the hot end has a smaller regulator, and it's right there. So that's what we thought. Oh, it says they're labeled on top, are they? No, they're not. But so we've got, I don't know why this one needs to be such a large one, but it is. This is for our fan. This is for our bed, and it also has the much larger heat sink. There's no heat sink on top of this, like there is on our previous board. Previous board had a heat sink across both of those regulators. Actually, all three of those regulators. But this one doesn't. Where's that? Two regulators? Can't see. Lost a screw. All right. So I was showing you stuff, but that's covered up. I was just looking at the regulator of the heat sink over here, and the new board doesn't have a heat sink on top, but it has these heat sinks that are kind of built into the board. All right, let's zoom out a little bit. All right, so this is the hardest part to me, and that is we've got to get these wires in, and we want to do it in a way that we're certain they are connected. So this is power in, so this is power out of your power supply. It's not AC power. AC power goes into your power supply, but DC power comes out. But still, nothing's going to work if we don't get those right. And it's way under there. You can sometimes get a little bit of slack pulling this thing through. There are zip ties around here that will get hung on stuff. But you have a little bit of wiggle room there. But for whatever reason, this particular printer has an extremely short power. The ground for it is got some slack. That one doesn't. And so we've got to get those two in here. Also, let's look at on this side, because it'll be easier to show with one of these. You want these things, this is not where this goes necessarily. You want these things all the way in there. You don't want them kind of like halfway in. They'll catch and work, but you've got that little bit of exposed wire right there that could, one of these could fall down in there across those two. They could possibly touch each other somehow. You don't want that. So that's the hardest part, is because you can't really see back here. I know you can't see at all what I'm doing because it's under the bed. I've kind of got it pulled out there. But you got to get in there and really make sure that wire is all the way in and tighten down. Also, you have to be careful that you don't like pop these things off of here when you're tightening it down. All right, so that seems good. This guy needs the same thing. Okay, so far this is actually going much simpler than what it typically does. All right, that light that came on was this. It wasn't like powering the board. This has a little light on it. All right, now we can kind of get things back in there. So these little slots here might protrude through, so you have to do a little bit of angling to get everything lined up. I'm going to go ahead and no, I'm not going to do that yet. Let's do the let's actually get some more slack, and let's do all these guys, and then everything else plugs in. So let's get this stuff done first. All right, so the order was the always on fan is the one at the back here, not that one, but this one, and that is, where'd it go? Here's one of them. This set of wires. Now red, now the wire colors mean nothing unless you've actually put them into the right spot. But typically, red is going to be your power and black is your ground. Some things will work. It doesn't matter which way they go. Like resistors, like your heater on your bed is a resistor and the heater on your hot end is a resistor. This is a fan, DC fan, and so it is possible that it will work the opposite, put the red in the ground side and the black in the positive side. But if it did work, which I'm not saying it will, but it might work, but it would spin backwards if it worked at all. So we do want to look on our board. Underneath here on the bottom on this board, it's labeled ground and DCN. So DCN is your red wire power and ground is the black wire. GND is ground. So we're going to go like this. Red here. And like I said, it might work backwards, but if it did, you'd end up in a bind eventually because it's spinning the fan backwards from what it's supposed to spin. It's going to be way less efficient and it's not going to cool very well. I think I missed the opening. All right, and so I tightened this down, but it didn't actually tighten the wire. So let's get back in there. All right, that time it grabbed it. So you do a little tug on it to make sure it didn't come out of there. If this fan is ever off while you're printing, you will probably get a clog because what's going to happen is the hot end is, it's 200 degrees or whatever, but this part, this little guy inside here, we'll look at that later, but inside here, it has the top part of it where the filament starts coming in at has to stay, room temperature, maybe a little bit above room temperature. If heat begins to creep into that top part of your hot end, you will get a clog, which is gonna be annoying to have to fix. We'll show some ways to fix that are not too bad, but still it's going to require disassembly usually. All right, now the next one, these biggest wires are your heat bed. They do have red and black, but it doesn't actually matter. It's just a resistor, so it doesn't matter which way they go in, but I'm going to put them in the way they're labeled also. They're just a resistor, just resists either way. In this case, the resistor resists the flow of electrons, and in doing so heats up. Like the whole point of it is to be a resistive heater. All resistors heat up some amount. This one, like, that's the whole point, is that it heats up. Let me get that in there. Make sure we got those. Yep, they look like they're nicely done. That one, there we go. Now, for whatever reason, we're going to switch tools. So this one, again, this one you can't even tell the difference on the wires. Like they're these wax coated wires right here. I am kind of twisting them a little bit to make sure I don't have little strands flying around and touching stuff they don't need to be touching. There. Looks okay. And then this one. Okay. Okay. Now just do one last little gentle tug on stuff to make sure nothing's loose. All right. Now let's get this back down in there. Got little zip ties getting hung on stuff. I'm going to put a screw or two in to hold it down, and then we're going to do a little power on test. Never took that screw out. Just to make sure nothing should happen, but there's a light on this board that should come on, and hopefully nothing like shorts out. But I want to check these wires before I go plug everything else in. If I can find, there's a, I think I missed. That one's not working for me. These little standoffs that you have to get lined up. And I want one of them plugged in just so the board won't keep moving around on me. All right, now let's do power. Plug in your power. Nothing bad happened there. Okay. Let's plug in our, this one didn't have a LED that came on. Maybe this one doesn't have an LED on board. But I thought I saw one back there. Yeah, there's right there. So that's a little bit making me think we didn't get, oh, yep. It's the same, it's the problem that I already knew was an issue with this. For whatever reason, it is difficult to get that unplugged. It's difficult to get that ground wire, the main ground wire going in, to actually go in. And it didn't. Look at that. Look at that. So let's reopen that one. For whatever reason, I always have trouble getting that ground wire to actually tighten down in there. The power one was fine. The ground wire wasn't in there at all. That's why you do a little test. All right. Seems like it's in the right spot. That feels tight. Okay. Put this guy back down in there. See if we can get things lined up. Screws back in. Plug power back in. There we go. All right, so now we have a LED. And fans came on and that kind of thing. All right, or well, the one fan that we wired in came on. Turn it back off. Unplug our power. So X is labeled up here. Oh, are these backwards? All right, so they're backward, not backwards, but they're rotated 180 degrees from what the other board was. So it's gonna make us twist all our wires up. X. Y looks like it's going to go better this way. I have two Z's. I'm going to use ZA. Oh, that's the extruder motor. Don't want to plug that into the Z. So there's a Z. And then the extruder's going to have a long stretch there. Hopefully it will make it. Wow, that is tight, but it does make it. We can put these little guys on each one of the stepper drivers here. I'll probably do that after I finish messing around in here because I'll probably knock them off. They're just stuck on with little adhesive double stick tape. All right, so here, let's get this guy. This is our part cooling fan. I'm thinking, let's look at our picture over here. Doesn't say, it just says fan 0 and fan 1. So I don't know, we'll have to test that out. It could be either one. I'm going to put it in fan 0. The other one, the previous board just said fan 1 and fan 2. So 0 and 1, Actually, it was in fan. I'm going to put it in fan 0. We'll see. If that doesn't work, we'll move this over to here. So this one, we can either send G-code, I think it's M106, to turn that on, or we can check that our layer fan comes on when we're printing PLA. All right, so here's our X end stop. There's X. There's our Y end stop. There's Y. We don't have a Z. Oh, I guess I didn't mention this when we were putting the CR Touch on, but if you're using the CR Touch, usually you unplug the Z end stop. You can use the mechanical one that's over here and the probe. That's kind of what they originally meant to do, but I like using the probe as the end stop because that way I can change out different beds on here with different thicknesses and I don't have to go adjusting this height all the time. So this guy is the one bundled with the bed wires. So it's the THB for bed. This one's got to make the long journey to here for the end. Here's our CR Touch wires. They're going to go right here, hopefully in the same order that they were before. This will kind of bundle these and get them on the side here. Now, oh, we can plug this. This is our old not monitor, but LCD screen. We can plug it in there. So it should, if there's firmware on here, we should get it to boot up. Oh, gotta plug the power back in. All right, so everything, the CR Touch did its routine. There is Marlin 2.0 on here. I don't know that it's going to have a bed sensor on it. Let's see in configuration if it... I don't see anything necessarily. But let's just do this right quick. So I don't know, and I don't even know what it sounded like on the computer screen or through the computer speakers, but the previous printer, well, the same printer, but previous board, did not have quiet motors, quiet drivers, stepper drivers here. This one does, so when I move axis, it should be much quieter. Oh, I have to home the axis before it'll let me move the axis. So let's just do, oh, I only have auto home. I don't want to do auto home because I don't know that, well, we'll just do it. We'll shut it down if it doesn't use the probe to home. So it's much quieter. This little thing rattles though, which is a little bit annoying. All right, so it didn't even try to home Z, so it doesn't know it has a touch sensor on there. Let's shut it down. What time are we at? Oh, we still have plenty of time. So even talking through all of that, it's only taken us probably 30 minutes to put that in. Let's do our screen. So we need to go over here, right there. And I have a kind of short cable right here. I might want to change it out because what I don't want to happen is it to somehow get hung up on the wheel right there. We'll see. So there's 2 screws here that hold this panel on. Take those. Oh, I need a bigger one than that though. Which, do I have one handy? Oh, lost our power. There we go. Wow, that is tight right there. So we just take these 2 out so we can get to the back of this to put our new guy on there. I also did not attach the rest of the screws that hold the board down yet. We'll need to do that. I'll do that maybe off screen. Depends on what time we end up at. All right, so this is what the back of our board or screen currently looks like. We can just pull this knob off of here. And we've got to take those 4 out. Okay. And this one. And again, no reason to like throw this away. It's still perfectly good. So we'll keep it. But we have this one now, which is in a little bag that we gotta open up. Just have a lot of padding in there. There's the screen, and then over here we've got some cables that I might want to use. You can reuse this knob. They do give you one here because this particular one has little LEDs that light up the knob, and you can change the color of them. So get that off of there, and this just drops in here. So I've got a couple of new things here. First of all, I've got the SD and USB slot, so I can use a thumb drive or the bigger SD card right here instead of having to work over in that little tiny one that's on the board. I do keep one plugged into the board though, just in case. I meant to look this up, but seems like some of the boards did store settings on the SD card on the board. That's also where firmware goes, so we'll need to update our firmware. But we've got RS-232 and our original type of connections so that we can use this will emulate the old screen if you need to, or we can use the nicer stuff to have a color screen and touch screen and everything. You can also put a little Wi-Fi module right here, I believe. I've never done that, so that you don't have to be connected at all. Like you can just wirelessly connect. We're going to do that a different way later on. Now, there is one problem that I never remember on this one, and we'll get to it when we plug this screen in. For whatever reason, there must be some board connections that are a little bit different than the one here, but for whatever reason, they split out one wire, and so it can plug in on either side, and you'll see that in a minute, and I never remember which way to do it. So all I'm doing is kind of tight. I know you don't want to like over tighten these things, but something like that. And then we've got, here's our new wires. These are the exact same length as the one that's on there, so they're not going to help. We'll leave it on. This one is going to plug in here. And then see the other end of it has one that's separate. And I never remember which way it goes. And then we'll plug this guy, I believe it's into this first one, I think. And then we'll get this guy mounted back in place with these big screws. And where'd the other one go? Here it is. And we got that guy. That guy. We'll just pop that guy on there. Now we can get back over here. This is already plugged in. You gotta get a little bit of slack to put this wire in here. There we go. There is a notch. Oh, can't get to it. There is a notch back in that corner for these wires. This one's not long enough to reach that notch. This one I think can, if I can get it back there. I just don't know if I can get it back there. I'm not going to be able to get it back there this way. We'll leave it just slid in here for now. Here's the one that has the extra little guy, and it plugs in on the TFT. So this set right here that say TFT, and I never remember which way it plugs in. We're going to try this way with the 1 and then the 4. All right, so we've kind of got things in there. I lost my power supply though. It fell off the table. All right, got it back. Plug in. All right, so now got a little touch mode or Marlin mode. Use touch mode. Maybe I've got those backwards. It's kind of going there. All right, let's try those the other way. No, that didn't like that. So why are we... You know, I'm only assuming that the firmware that's on there actually works with this screen. I don't know what I had y'all looking at. Oh, I just realized something though. I put the SD card in here. It might have loaded some new firmware on here when I did that. I'm not 100% sure if it did or not. I don't know what's on that SD card that I put in the board. So let's go and look at our firmware. All right. So I do want to do the same thing I did before, where I went to TH3D unified firmware, except this time I want to get the stuff for SKR Mini E3. So I don't remember what page that was on, so we'll just have to scroll through until we find the Ender stuff. There's Creality Pro, CR10, Ender 2, Ender 3. All right, so we don't have Ender 3 Max. This is still just Ender 3. Here we go. Melzy board. No. Here we go. SKR Mini version 1, 1.2. This was a version 2. We looked at the board itself and it said version 2 on the board. I don't know if you can see that now that it's covered up. Oh, yeah, that's actually version 2 right there. All right, so we want that one. There is a separate one for version 3. So we want this one. This firmware is for boards with STM32 CPUs. It will not run reliably on SKR boards with GigaDevice or other clone CPUs. So we do need STM CPUs. Let's just make sure. Can we even see that? Maybe if I zoom in and focus. Wow, it's... Okay, I can see it. it is written, like, I don't know if I can get it to where y'all can see it or not. Oh, maybe. Let's see some contrast here. Nope. What about the other way? Almost. All right, so where you're looking is, see, I probably don't want to put something metal down in there, is right there. So, I can see it in person. You may not can see it on the screen, but right there on the CPU, see, it's an ARM CPU, STM32 is written right there. So it's pretty easy to see in person. You may not can see it on the screen right now, though. So we do have this STM32. It says it might work. It just says it will not run reliably on these other ones. So if you get like a fake board that's a knockoff of the SKR. All right, so we don't have to worry about that. Let's download this. Network error, great. All right, so we downloaded it down here. I'm gonna drop it on the desktop once it actually finishes downloading. We should have just enough time to get this stuff on here. We won't get to test anything really. All right, now we need, we need this guy. Where did it go on the desktop? Got so many screens. Close that one. There it is over there. No, that's not it. Here it is down here. We need to extract this. Oh, no. That's not it. That's the one from the last time. So where did it go? Maybe it just went to downloads. There it is. I do have a copy somewhere. All right. So I've used it before. Extract those. All right, now somewhere on the desktop, that thing is folders there. We don't need this one. Let's close these guys. And we have this folder still open, so let's close folder. And let's open the new folder. And it's on the desktop. And it's this folder. So you don't actually open the Marlin folder here. If you open the Marlin folder, it will open up and you can edit configuration.h and all that kind of stuff, but you won't be able to actually compile the firmware. So we want it to see Marlin, but not open it. So we open that. Yes, I trust the authors for this particular one. Now, once we're in VS Code, we open Marlin folder and look for our configuration.h. And we have an Ender 3. We have the SKR Mini version 2. We don't have a filament sensor. Oh, I don't remember our numbers. We'll have to come up with that. We have a custom probe. I do not want to configure that. We'll keep 3x3 grid points. That'll be fine. We'll keep the 35 millimeters from the edge so that we're not like right on the edge. We need to change these. I think it was -47 and -10, something like that. I can do the 47 pretty quick. Let's get out that and see. I'm pretty sure the other one was -10, but let's see what this one was. Yeah, it was, well, negative 45 maybe. Let's put negative 45 in here. Okay. We need, I never did go change our E-steps from last time. I know they're not 410. We're not turning that on. We'll change them on the printer when we get to that. We don't have a different thermistor. We don't want to change the, you can change it to where if you turn the knob clockwise or counterclockwise, it scrolls differently. I like the way it scrolls right now, so we don't need to do that. We don't have any of the extender kits. We're going to leave that alone. Let's turn on the offset wizard. We will leave off fine baby stepping. We'll just do regular baby stepping. Leave linear advance off for now. Here's what I did wrong last time. We will define BO touch and, oh, this is a little bit different. We are using BO touch on 5-pin. Here's where you set your servo pin. For SKR E3 Mini, use PA1. Okay. We will undefine that. I'm not 100% sure if we need to or not. We don't want manual mesh. Everything else looks fine. All right. Let's compile. It says there's an error. Comments. Oh, okay, that's fine. Include. Okay, so that just means that it hasn't downloaded some dependency that it needs. Maybe it'll do that once it starts actually compiling it. It did a bunch of them. All right. 9:02. We might. I don't know. We might run out of time. Just making sure nobody's put anything in the chat. All right. So we'll let this thing go. In the meantime, we'll come back over here and let's zoom back out. We've got a couple of little screws still to put in here. I'd like to get this situated differently. I don't know the best way to get that to happen. I might loosen, let's get out a little bit further out. I might loosen these to have a little more wiggle room in here to get these to situate a little better. All right. I might actually. I don't want to cut the wires accidentally. I might be able to slide this one through back here. Yeah, that's much better. All right. So there we go. And we had determined that this worked better. Okay. And then let's put some more of these screws in. It doesn't need all of these, but still compiling over there, so that looks okay. I'd like to get this screw in the very back here. It's just hard to get to. So I'm having to do a little bit of an angle. And some of your Allen wrenches have these little ball ends versus maybe one that's just straight. So these with the ball on the end let you have a little bit of misalignment and still get the screw to go in there. So they can be handy. Sometimes they're more pain than they're worth, but in this case it was actually handy. So I'm just doing some cleaning up. Yeah, here we go. I'm going to put the old board in our little anti-static bag. It's kind of busted open, but we'll wrap it up in this bubble wrap and set it aside. put it in the box of other boards. This guy we'll keep aside too, just in case we ever need it. And put the knob back on it. Let's see. The rest of what we have are the screws that go on top. I don't know that I'm 100% ready to put the top back on. Oh, yeah, because we haven't made sure that this is in the right port. We need to make sure that the fan, the cooling fan, part cooling fan, is actually wired up. I'll put these guys on, still compiling, so we can put one of these on. All you do with these, and like I said, this board has a lot of heat sink built into it, so I don't know that these are 100% necessary, but they don't hurt anything. And I'd rather not have my stepper motors overheat. So I want to just drop that guy on there. The air, you know, is brought in from right here and kind of just forces its way through the box. It doesn't really have a in. Well, it has an in right here. It doesn't really have an out, so you can't tell where the air is supposed to go. But I oriented these so that air would better flow this way across the little fins versus that way, because it seems like the air would mostly want to go back towards that. I don't know how much they actually designed that though, versus just stuck a fan on the top of the box. Okay, these don't have much room at all. Oh, we successfully compiled our new firmware. So now this board, I believe the other one we just had to put a new name on the file and have it end in bin. I believe this board, it has to be named firmware.bin for it to actually upload it. So I do need to do that. So I've already got my little SD card out, and we're back over here. And we've successfully created our firmware. So we go to PIO, build, there's the folder it's in, reveal that in File Explorer. Whoops. And that is what's already on there. I'm going to erase that one. And we're going to go over here. Yes, they called it firmware.bin. So we're going to copy that to our SD card. We'll eject our SD card. All right. We'll go back over to our printer. Insert this guy. This does have to go on the board. You can't put the firmware on the LCD screen, even though you can put the SD card with the firmware over there. It doesn't actually do anything. It has to be on the board. And turn it on. And see if we get it to... I don't know that... Oh, maybe it's booting up right now. I can't tell. It did give me a screen on the little control panel, but I don't know that it's finished loading firmware or not. Not 100% sure. It beeped. Oh, all right. So it's giving me, the error it gives me is that the Z probe was not working right. Although it does look, it does act right, and it did go through its self-test routine. All right, let's try the... So one thing you can tell on these SD cards that do it this way with the firmware update is that if it actually updated it, it's going to be renamed. See, it's all, oh, you can't see that. It's all capital letters now. So it did act like it was installing new firmware. Let's just make sure so there's, oh, this one is not a bin file anymore. It's a CUR file. And so it did put that new firmware on there. Here's the original firmware bin file. It keeps it on there, but renames it all caps firmware and .cur. And so you can see that. So let's turn the old printer. Actually, I wonder which one of these LCD cables might be the issue. Let's unplug this guy. The rest of this will just be testing out what might be going on with our screen here. I wonder, just checking what all we've got here. I wonder if I plugged it into the wrong. Oh no, that's the right one there. That is a tight fit there. Oh, our real problem was this guy was not all the way seated. So it wasn't actually, it was, some of the video was there, but it wasn't responding quite right. So I reseated this cable because this cable was like barely reaching. So I'm going to restart it with the cable better in place and see if that works better. I'm also going to check and see if I can find the TFT correct arrangement here. Let's see. Might have to go get one of my other printers to check it out. I'm just looking, I'll show you what I'm looking. I'm just looking to see if there's an obvious, oh, here we go. All right, so they do have that, but which way does this go? Turn it off. I think I might have that backwards. All right, so they've got the dot line. Oh, wow. So they've got, I don't even have a dotted, I don't have that pattern. I've got dash, and that one has writing on it. Oh, they should make this a little bit simpler. All right, so I think just looking at, these pictures here, I don't have the same arrangement of wires is the problem. So, which way might I use this? That's the question. Like, all of these show the same pattern where they've got dots, dashes, X's, and long bars. I have long bar, pluses, long bar, writing. So how does that match up? And again, the symbols on it don't really mean anything. It's just tracking which wire goes to which port. So in this picture, the big picture here, they've got the dots towards the outside, and mine has the long bar towards the outside. And then when you plug that in on the board, that means, where's one showing it plugged into the board? Here. The dots are on that side, which that's the way I had it. So I've still got some little issue somewhere. I'm not sure why they built it this way. You know, the other thing that can happen, I'm over here now, is that since this doesn't have any locators, you could actually end up shifting it to where you're not even on all the pins. Right, I am on all the pins in the order that they show. I don't know why the screen over here immediately goes to choosing Marlin or touch mode. Normally it does not do that. So I might have to fiddle around with this to figure out which direction to plug these things in. And let you know next time. Which is Wednesday. Wednesday will be the next one. Because I don't see any like definitive pin out that shows the order for these, what's going to work best. Alright, so on Wednesday we'll come back and have this thing wired up the correct way, but we're out of time today. So the things left to do are, well, we gotta put our fan cover back on. That's not that critical, but we do have to get that. We've got to figure out which order to put these wires in. And we need to tune our E steps to make sure, because this whole completely new board doesn't have any of our previous tuning. Any tuning that you did before, if you did PID tuning, we haven't really talked about that. E step tuning, if you did any of that, that doesn't exist anymore. So we'll have to go back through that process. And then we've got to get our screen working, you know, make sure our screen is going to actually do something over here. So we'll do some of that on Wednesday. Basically, I'll just wrap up what I had to do to get it all working. And then we'll talk about something new. I think, what did I have? I have other printer types listed there, more as a discussion thing, and maybe I'll grab some printers to look at some different types of printers. I have a separate one for resin printing. So I might mention resin to Wednesday, but not necessarily go into detail about how to do resin printing, but we'll have a whole nother day for that. So it looks like that's what we're headed towards. So I might have to go watch one of my old videos here to see how I plugged the TFT in before and see which way it goes. All right. I will see y'all on Wednesday.